What's going on, yo? We're gonna take in a little bit of a different journey today. I've been working on creating a curriculum for Life Magick. And really, Life Magick is essentially this extension of what optimal evolution was originally created for, in the sense that, with optimal evolution, even, we work with a lot of athletes, but really it comes down to this expansion of awareness and of consciousness and of the choices that we are making. For me, starting out as an athlete, which again, like, you doing whatever that thing is that you're passionate about and that you're going to fully invest yourself in and go through the inevitable challenges associated with it, you doing that thing is one of the most important things that you can do, because finding that thing helps to set the stage and to set the wheels in motion for you ultimately discovering what your purpose is and what you're here to do, which really becomes that ignition, that driving force that just propels you to push yourself beyond any limits that you thought were previously imposed on you. Anything that you thought maybe wasn't possible for you, when you find that thing, whatever that is for you, it gives you that push to really break through, to become all that you have the potential to be. And so that's really what optimal evolution is all about, is creating that foundation and giving you all the tools and the guidance that you need to be the best that you can be. And obviously, if you are called to pursue being an athlete, especially a strength athlete, then that is what we specialize in. It's kind of like the barbell is our tool, our weapon of choice. I remember before optimal evolution was ever even a thing, I like the very first business venture that I began was called Strength Hero. And it was the same concept, where it was all about you using the barbell as your weapon of choice to slay the dragon of thou shalt, of everything that is imposed upon you, of how you're supposed to show up in the world, the things that you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to be around with, your job, whatever that is. All these ideas that we kind of get indoctrinated into, whether it's from our parents or just from our society, and even just generational shit, because people don't realize it, but there's our DNA is like this huge memory bank of our entire evolution, from our ancestors to even before even being human. Like you can find all of the information, all the memory encoded in the DNA from our entire evolutionary process. And so there's a lot of things that even are traumatic things throughout the history of our evolution that are encoded in our DNA. And therefore, being able to process through those things and grow through those things, because there's things that maybe not even happened in our lifetime. Like, for instance, the whole concept of scarcity and of just not having enough. That is something that has been literally passed down generation through generation, and it might be even more severe depending on your parents and your grandparents and in your family line. But either way, just as a human species, that has been an example of something that has been this traumatic memory that we've been carrying around with, that we're kind of just now coming to collectively to being able to face and to grow through. But either way, that's just an example. And with Strength Hero, the concept was using the barbell, using that as a weapon, as a tool to be able to do your own inner work to become all that you have the potential to be. And so that's essentially the same message and the same context is infused in optimal evolution. But when I started to work with people more individually and started to get deeper and deeper into even my own coaching process, I started to recognize that there was kind of this gap where different people are all coming from different places. And, somebody that's just starting out, which is kind of what optimal evolution is tailored to, their biggest challenge might be, I just don't know what to eat, or, I'm just not sure how to manage myself effectively, my mind, my emotions, my day-to-day living, my time, my schedule, my relationships. And so we create the tools and the framework. And part of this process too, even with optimal evolution, is creating a kind of a curriculum, a framework to be able to walk somebody the most effectively down this path of, okay, here's, start here, and then this is where you're ultimately going to end up. But what I began to notice was I'd be able to get somebody to a certain point, and then they would start to open up all of these other doors. Because as I'm sure you've probably experienced, when you get one question answered, it's, something you might be seeking, whether that might be something as like your nutrition, or how much water should I be drinking, or what kind of exercises should I be doing, or how do I just be, how do I get myself to show up consistently to the gym? That might be your primary challenge that you're facing. And then as you do your own work and beginning to notice that what you're experiencing on the outside is a mirror of what's going on the inside. And, so your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, the stories that you're telling yourself, emotions that you maybe haven't allowed yourself to process, all of these kind of internal things end up getting reflected back to us externally. And, one of the most obvious ways comes down to the way that we self-sabotage ourselves, where, we'll say that we want one thing, and we really do want that thing. And then we might start a course of action to try to get that thing, or get to that place, or achieve that goal, whatever that is. And then along the journey, we find ourselves bumping up against our old habits. And there comes a point where we kind of get to this place where it can be easier to fall back into our set habits, because it's like a path, like a dirt trail that you've driven down. And so, if you drive down it once, you've maybe got some little grooves in the trail, but then each time you drive down that, it gets to the point where you don't even have to steer anymore, because the trail is so ingrained, the path is so ingrained, that it's just the easiest, the least resistant path. And so it's easier and easier to go down it every time that you go down it. And these are how, literally networks are wired in our brains, and they show up in patterns of thought and patterns of action, patterns in the way that we speak, patterns of different circumstances we find ourselves in. And so as you go through that process, you make progress, but then you start to grow your awareness and to realize that more and more your ultimate potential, whether that is being an athlete, whether that is in business, or whether that is, whatever that is for you, that ultimate potential is ultimately is affected by your internal state. Because in reality, the internal and the external, they're mirrors of one another, but they are one another, because it's all fundamentally, it's all made up of the same stuff. And that's a key component. And so essentially what I began to notice is that the way that things were formulated with optimal evolution, there wasn't like a clear path of, okay, how do we go from we're doing our training and we're eating better, we're drinking more water, we're going to bed on time, and then inevitably the question starts to pop up, well, okay, I'm noticing this progress. how do I take this even further? What is truly my ultimate potential? How do I do this work to be the best that I can possibly be? And I started to notice that when I was having one-on-one sessions with people, and inevitably the things that end up holding us back, again, going to the self-sabotage, the things that end up holding us back the most are the things that we are doing to ourselves. And even the things that we seem like they're outside of our control, these are still things that we at some level are drawing to ourselves, whether it's some kind of like karmic debt, which is a whole discussion in itself, whether it is some like pattern of thinking that is repeating itself in the things that we're experiencing, whether it's some kind of unconscious or subconscious drive that is showing itself unconsciously or showing itself in the things that you're experiencing. All of these different things have an effect, and they're opportunities. These challenges are the opportunities to allow you to see the things that you need to see to become the person that you have the potential to become. And so once you realize that and you begin to take personal responsibility, because again, it can be so easy to victimize ourselves and to say, oh, this thing was out of my control and it just happened to me. Life is just happening to me and I don't have control and it's not my fault. Which again, you can choose to believe in that version of reality. The question is, how's that working for you? Is that giving you more of what you say you want for yourself? Do you even know what you want for yourself? Or are you just continuing to try to run away from the things that you don't want? These are important questions to ask. And the more I do this work, the more I realize that the quality of the answers that you get, the quality of the life that you are experiencing is a direct reflection of the questions that you are asking yourself. And the questions that you are asking yourself have a lot to do with your own paradigm of who you are, how you feel like you fit in the grand scheme of things, what you feel like you're here to do, how you see yourself in relationships to other people, what you feel like your ultimate potential is. So all of these kind of underlying beliefs. And when it comes to these beliefs, I've noticed these are like layers of an onion, where you kind of have your surface level beliefs, which are easy to see, which, you can kind of easily question. Maybe your ego isn't too attached to them. And then you can question those things. And then underneath those beliefs, what these like surface level beliefs are built on, there's a layer deeper of these underlying beliefs that are the foundation of these more surface level beliefs. And then underneath that, it's like this continual peeling back of all the different layers of the beliefs until you get down to the core, which is really like the whole process of your spiritual evolution and even just human evolution, is essentially stacking all these beliefs up, all these ideas about who we are, where our place in the universe, all of these things. We stack all these ideas up because we're in this process of searching and of experiencing, because again, this is all the same stuff as God experiencing God. So this whole process of searching and experiencing, and then we ultimately we get to the point where we realize like we're not living up to our full potential by the beliefs that we have subjected ourselves to. And so then we have to go through this process of peeling all the layers back to get back to the core fundamental beliefs. And one of the easiest ways to do this is just the practice of questioning everything. So especially the things that, like I know when I notice with myself, when I have like a blanket statement about something where I don't feel like this thing could be any other way. And when I have those, that's when I question, like, okay, is there something that is underlying? Is that really true, essentially? And so I can ask myself these questions and I can just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's really the process. So the reason I say all that is essentially because when it comes to your own process of evolution, there's a lot of different factors. And when you're first starting out, there's a lot of things that are outside of your control. But as you start this work, you can begin with that surface layer stuff, and you can start there. And again, this is what optimal evolution is for. It's like you start with the basics of making sure you're eating clean food, making sure you're drinking enough quality water, making sure you're getting enough rest and going to bed on time, making sure you're creating space for yourself on a regular basis to just be, and to have a gap between all the doing of life, making sure that you're beginning to become aware of your thoughts and being able to start detaching yourself from your thoughts and from your emotions, and really just creating this witnessing aspect of your day-to-day existence, because that is all these foundational things are the foundation for you to start to do this deeper work. It's just like in being an athlete, where if you've never done anything before and you went to the gym and you were like, all right, I'm just going to do this super hardcore workout and I've never done anything before, and you're likely, one, probably won't even be able to finish it, and two, you'll be sore for 2 weeks afterwards. And so when you first start out with training, you have to go through this process of essentially getting yourself in a good enough condition to actually be able to train, which I call, it's like you have to train to get in shape so that you can train. Because there's levels to training. Obviously, an elite athlete that's been training consistently for 10 years is going to be on a different regimen than somebody that hasn't done anything their whole life and they're just starting out. So it's the same process. That athlete that's been training for 10 years, they've in a sense, they've mastered the basics, even though you're always going back to the basics, but they have a certain level of mastery of the basics, which allows them to be able to do the more advanced things, the fancier things. And so the same thing with your own personal development. You have to begin with the basic foundational stuff. And then that sets the foundation, that lays the groundwork for you to be able to do the more intense work. But a lot of times people like to jump straight in to doing the deep work. You go on this like ayahuasca journey, or you decide you're going to start doing different plant medicines and mushrooms or whatever, or you decide you're going to go on this like retreat. And meanwhile, you haven't really learned how to eat right. You haven't really learned how to just manage yourself at a basic level, which again, sometimes you need that immersive experience to initiate you into that process. But a lot of times you just need to start with where you're at, because so much of this process too, we get so wrapped up in trying to be better and trying to do more, and this kind of this idea of I just better and better and better, more and more and more, not realizing that at a certain point, even the concept of striving, of trying, must drop away, because the whole concept of I'm trying to be better has the seed within it that you are not currently good enough, that you're not currently exactly where you're supposed to be. And so at a certain level, for you to continue to progressing, everything that you did to get you to a certain place, all the habits, all the structures, all the kind of the things that maybe you didn't feel like doing, but you made yourself do because you knew it was going to be the best thing for you, all of those things eventually have to fall away. It's like this, like evolution isn't just this linear path. Evolution is this spiraling. And so you'll find yourself kind of going in circles, but going in circles at different levels. For me, an example is when I first started really getting into my health journey, I had to be super rigid with the way that I was eating because I had a lot of issues with my gut, with different sensitivities, and just overall a lot of health challenges. And I had to eliminate a lot of things and put myself on a very rigid program to balance myself out. But it got to a certain point where that level of rigidity actually started to hold me back. And I had to allow myself more and more freedom to just be. And that's what ultimately continued my process. And that's currently where I'm at right now, is continuing to let more and more things just be exactly how they are, and learning how to create more and more flow in life to allow space for just whatever to arise. And there's a certain balance here of the, having the structures in place as to kind of act as guardrails so that you can continue to have things in place to move to where you want to go, while at the same time giving yourself the space and the freedom to be exactly where you're supposed to be right here and right now. Because really, where else is there to possibly be other than right here and right now? So that's ultimately that transition when I talk about like the life magic, and it's really all one thread. It's all just one process, even though it might kind of take different shapes and different names at different levels, but it's really all one. It's all part of the same stuff. And that's why I was saying this process of evolution, really, it's this big kind of circle essentially, because you start out like not knowing anything. You don't know what you don't know, and you have to first and foremost figure out the things that you don't know, and then you have to know those things. You got to learn those things, and then you got to implement all of those things, and then you're kind of come to this place of like maximum complexity where you're doing all the things, you know everything, or you're continuing to expand your knowledge. And then you have to, once you get to a point of maximum complexity, you realize that it's not sustainable. And so then you have to come back down the hill on the other side to this place of just, it's from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence, where you can trust yourself, and that by just following your own intuition, following your own inner guidance, that you are going to be led exactly where you're supposed to be, for you to be all that you have the potential to be, which paradoxically is nobody, because there's nothing to do, there's nobody to be, but you have to go through this whole process in order to come back to that same place, but on a different level, the spiral of evolution. So that's what I got for y'all today. I've had an initial plan going in here, but we just let it flow, and I think we've gotten to a good place. So we're going to keep building on this, most likely. Like I said, my intention is I want to use this as a platform. Well, I didn't actually say this, but now I'm saying it. I want to use this as a platform to be able to begin to build out this curriculum, this process, which eventually might be like an academy of some sort, where we have students and we're taking people through this process, but building it in such a way where it allows and it encourages and it embraces and it is aligned with everybody's unique genius. And because we're all on different paths, and we're all different expressions of the same thing, like different leaves on the tree. They're all unique, even though they're all coming from the same place, and they are all a part of the same thing. And so allowing space within the structure that actually maximizes your own unique gifts and talents, and being able to use that in a way to create the life that you want to live, and do it in a way that is not only suiting you, because at a certain point your sense of self begins to expand to include more and more of everything else, until you ultimately, your entire self essentially just drops away because you realize yourself as your true self, which is this unification, this oneness with all that is. And the importance of that is really even our own experience and like the earth, what we are co-creating here in this experience for everybody. Because at a certain level, it goes beyond just you, but you have to be you. You have to be all of you in order to be all that you are. All right. So we'll just keep talking in these sayings and paradoxes here. But yeah, so that's the journey that we're on. And if you've made it this far, I appreciate you hanging out here with me. And I look forward to sharing more with you very, very soon. Have a great day. The journey is the way. Peace.